No, I have not been a farmer all my life. Initially, I hated farming. I grew up in a farming community. I saw my father work as a farmer, and I decided that I never going to do that. Now, I love farming. I really enjoy producing my own vegetables.
This film was produced because so often when we talk about climate change, the question comes up, well, what does this have to do with me, with my day-to-day life? It's not apparent to most people that climate change is a bread and butter issue. This film shows that climate change, well, it isn't so much a bread and butter issue in this case, but it is a fruits and greens issue. It's about how we feed ourselves, our families, our whole country, as a matter of fact, in a world where our climate is changing and will force us to change along with it. Here, we show how small farmers in Guyana are using techniques such as shadehouse agriculture to not only adapt to climate change, but to provide healthy food for their families and the nation.
Let me just give you a rundown on what I really love about it. Prior to being introduced to this method of farming, shadehouse farming, I used to encounter a lot of problems with the traditional method, such as weather condition, insects, and so on used to affect me a lot. And with the shadehouse farming, it kind of gives it an advantage where you kind of control the atmosphere, which means that the planting, the produce that you set out to plant, it's in a much more controlled environment, and comes out to what you expect it to be. Unlike with the traditional method, it was either too much rain or too much sun. And with this method, it's far different.
I was farming for the past 20 years. Well, at first when I hear about it, said how a plant can grow in the water just like that, and like I couldn't believe. So I decided to visit a farmer. And when I went and see her farm, she was having lettuce in the water growing, and I decided to come and try it. And that is the way I started 4 tables in the water system. And you wouldn't believe it, I get some celery like 2 feet tall in that water with a hydroponic solution. 2 feet tall, high celery like this. I got visitors who come and video and see them. 2 feet tall celery, tall like this. Really, really nice and green, nice, beautiful.
When we started, what people were saying, why are you putting plants in a house, in a building? I mean, you don't do that. We've never seen that. And I said, well, years ago, we took chickens from running around in the yard and we put them in a building, I mean, a proper building with zinc sheets with the top and concrete flooring and all that sort of stuff, We took the pigs out of the mud and we did the same thing. When we think of protected agriculture, right, we're generally thinking about crops. And we've brought the vegetables in from the outside to inside. And there are different ways of protection. There are different levels of protection. The more basic one is one in which you're still growing in the ground, in the soil, assuming that it's not going to be flooded, but you're protected by putting on a roof. And generally that roof could be plastic, right, a greenhouse plastic, or it could be shade cloth, known as saran netting, or it could be both, depending. I guess the most basic would be using a shade cloth and growing it in the ground where the soil is not going to be flooded, where the ground is not going to be flooded. Because on the coast, we're likely to be flooded. I mean, we on the coast here have grown through the experience of 2005. And so once the rain begins to fall pretty hard, we sort of, wow, is it going to be a repeat? And so to allow for that, the next level of protection is one in which we're growing the crops off of the ground. We basically have a tray about 3 feet off of the ground, and so you're protected from water, from floods, or from soggy soil up to 2.5, maybe just under 3 feet. So you can still grow crops even if you have 2.5 feet of water, because the trays will be above that. So you protect from flooding and from excess moisture. And at the top, you have the greenhouse plastic. For vegetables in particular, the greenhouse plastic is very important, because a lot of times when the rain is falling, it's just like too much rain, too much water. It means therefore you're protected from excess water at the root zone, from flooding, as well as excess water directly from rainfall. And so in that environment, you're protected. Right now, in Guyana, we deliberately stay away from the term greenhouse, because when you say greenhouse, you're kind of suggesting the forest world type greenhouse, which is fully enclosed with cooling mechanisms when it's too hot. You know, this is the tropics. And so in our setting here, we prefer the term shade house, because what we have, as someone described it, is more like a tropical greenhouse. Let's say 2005. That is the basis of everything, the big flood. And it was the now deceased scientist emeritus, Hector Munoz, who called from Costa Rica while we were still underwater here, in some places 6 feet underwater. So Hector called and he said, "You remember we were talking about this hydroponics thing and so on, and greenhouse?" But you know, I had brushed it aside because we were doing too many things, and like so many other persons, I myself had told Hector, I said, "Man, you know, why we need greenhouse in any case, you know, man, you know, I've seen that stuff in the States, and we have a lot of land here and all that sort of stuff, you know. I mean, I've heard this like a million times after, right?" So I was the first one to voice it. And then he said, "Kelvin, is not what you saw in the States, you know. All right, it's different. We're talking here of a low cost way of doing things. Anybody can do this thing."
So there I was doing this poultry, and they came with the farmer program and talking about greenhouse, and I wasn't interested. So I told the other farmers, so you know, you could go and do as they ask of you, build these structures, and they would come back and give you the information. They said yes, and they went. When I asked them from time to time how y'all coming, they said that they were coming good. And one day the field officer called me about 2 o'clock and said, "You know, the volunteers are here and they want to come and see what y'all doing." I said, "Okay, let me call the guys." And when I call them, they say, "Man, follow man, we ain't worrying with the thing, I forget it." I said, "You can't do that, because I tell the people exactly what you told me, and the people are coming." So based on that, well, there's something about me, I can't afford to feel shame. So I went and I just dismantled one of my fold pen and started. But they came and saw exactly what was happening, and they just gave off with me and they left. But after dismantling the fold pen, I can put it back together, because I don't step back, I just go forward. So I started to cultivate inside. Then I realized I gotta get something for the roof. I went and get some fiberglass and put it fiberglass in the roof, and then it started to come. About a month after, some other volunteers came, they saw what I was doing, go into their office and tell them, and they come back, and then we started to work together. Crops started coming like half the amount of time and 3/4 the amount of time. Twice the value, better payments and everything, and everybody become upbeat. Of course I was. So I started to expand. So I was attached to ECA and to partners, and they both keep sending volunteers, coming and checking on the progress in the program, and that's how I got involved in the program.
That's how we started, right? So it was ECA in conjunction with St. Stanislaus College Farm, in conjunction with Partners of America, right? But ECA took the lead in that very, very early initiative. We started right here. We got prepared for the first training session.
The training, when we started the project, we sensitized the regions about this whole hydroponic technology, which was there around. It was around some time now, but this project has really brought it to fore. And one of the things is that you were so elated to see the number of people, the young, the middle-aged, the elderly, the blind, the deaf, students from the special needs school, everybody becoming so interested in putting something into the ground and seeing it grow. And it was so pleasing for us when we used to have training, that you used to cater for 25 persons. At one time we ended up with 125. We had to do 2 training in one day. The success was so overwhelming. Everybody wanted to be part of this whole thing. And it's also good to see that some persons who were not, who were having problems financially, were able to do their own little planting, sell in the community, and then sell for the field. And we would have had several cases where when we did the cost of production, we would have known where a lot of persons would have moved from one level to another level based on this whole hydroponics, natural organic situation. So that in itself is a success, a tremendous success in the project.
Yeah, right now the weather are unpredictable because when it's not rainy month, you still get rain. Like from before, you say most time you get June and July rain, right? May, June rain. But now now it's February and look rain. So the weather is unpredictable. Well, this is the advantage of the shade house. It can be rainy, it can rain whole month, it can rain 2-3 months. Everything is safe under the shade house. That is one of the most advantage that you get for the shade house, for the rainy periods. It protects everything that you plant.
Agriculture has lots of challenges, and these challenges are even more so now that we have the signs of climate change. Guyana has experienced flooding, and we now know there are a number of areas within Guyana, especially on the coast, that are vulnerable to flooding. It makes no sense, or it's very difficult for a farmer who is producing vegetables to lose his crop from time to time as a result of flooding. So what does Shade House really do? The Shade House provides an environment, a protective environment, to adapt towards the vulnerability of specific areas.
We must understand the climatic factors. There are factors that affects us in agriculture. Water, sunlight, temperature and humidity. Those are the basics. We would have seen over the years an increase in the temperature, thus causing serious effects both on crops and livestock. Because some of the varieties that we are plant that we would have had previously, they are not high temperature tolerant. The real effect of water in agriculture is generally flooding. Overtapping of dams, excessive and intensify rain, and so on. The absence of water in this scenario is drought, which we do face from time to time in Guyana, in our agriculture system, especially in the hinterland region.
What we're accustomed to, too long dry season and too short wet season, is that it's not here anymore. There's climate change, and because of climate change, it changes the whole dynamics. So for us to live and keep on living and living healthily, we must have to adapt to these changes.
Yes, if you look around now, you can see that the place is very, very dry. Yes, this catches me also when I came here to live first, because I thought I could have planted all around in the yard. But anyhow, I planted, and the rain came and everything flooded and everything died. In the Pomeroon district here, one of the challenges that we are having is water flood in the area. Every year during the rainy season, we would have floods. About sometime it would the flood would be about 2 feet to 3 feet high. So one of the ways that we think that would help is to have the shade house and to have it about 3 feet from the ground level. So that is the reason why we have it like this.
So in order to adapt to the changes, you started to look at control agriculture. You can't stop the weather. You just have to comply with it. And during this duration of complying with it, you started to build structures at the top to keep out the excessive rain, but you still allow a certain amount of the rays of the sun to come in, which the plant requires, and it's going well.
And I will share my experience. In 2015, there was a lot of rain in December. I planted lettuce. The lettuce didn't sell in December. They didn't come in because of the lack of sunlight. They didn't have enough sunlight in December. The lettuce were not as big as they ought to be for sale. In January, most of the conventional farmers had sold their lettuce already. But I had lettuce, and I was able to supply my market from January right on to March because of the rain and because I was growing under a control system.
Climate change is on us. We can't run away from it. The world is changing, and we can no longer predict how much sunshine we're going to get, how much rain we're going to get at any given period. So once crops are not protected in some form or the other, you're going to get a lot of losses. That's like pouring money down a hole. Once you have protective agriculture, you control your own climate. You can, if you look above your head, you can see saran wraps, you can see different forms of things that will keep either the wind, too much wind out of your crops, too much rain out of your crops. You set your climate to suit the crops that you are planting. Right? So that is the core of protective agriculture. This is just a small shade house, but shade house can go very, very, very large. I've seen some shade house that take up 2 or 3 lots or more, right? And they tend to use raised beds instead of these high off the ground. So you just use raised beds and they run it down, but it's protected. And that is the way to go if we want to sustain our food economy in Guyana. We have to combat climate change.
With climate change, it could weaken food security in Guyana and globally as well. On a global scale, the demand for food, there's a big question, are we reaching that demand? Are we secure that the percentage of person that who need food, if we could supply it? So in the sense that if we have climate change, we got all these kind of issues, and we are supposed to produce X amount of food, and we don't reach a target because of one of these factors intervening in production, you know, the security of food for the nation is definitely in trouble. So the thing is that agriculture production definitely links to food security.
Most of the produce comes from out of this community. People do a little thing and then, but it's not, sometimes it won't be consistently.
In terms of quality, well, we know the quality is not going to be too great, right? Because by and large, it's moving in a truck at, room temperature, at the normal temperature out there. And if you're going through the trail with a lot of dust and so on, we know, If it's rainy weather, well then, you know, some things would have fallen down. Maybe the pumpkin or the melon would have fallen down in the mud. You just wash it off, you know.
The quality is not of the best because most of it, as I explained earlier, most of the produce comes from through Linden, through the trail, right? And some persons or vendors rather goes to Georgetown, do purchasing from Georgetown to Linden, from Linden to Kokwani. So by the time it gets here, you know, leafy vegetable especially, it's not too wholesome. You know, days of, you know, it takes so many hours to reach into the final destination. So it starts withering and so on.
Now, in terms of food supply and the chain of distribution, now obviously, if produce is originated in Perica, back down, or Blackbush Polder, and passes through Georgetown on its way to Linden or Kokwani or Madia or further away in the interior, then the price at which is going to be sold is a function of the original cost, right, whatever the farmer got, plus all the different stages of transportation, plus handling, because somebody has to be paid, right? The middlemen usually get a bad name, but the middlemen are doing a job that other people not doing. If you speak to most farmers, they will tell you, no, we're not interested in taking stuff to the marketplace, right? Their thing is to grow the stuff, right? And they want to get rid of it.
Yeah, the price must be double and triple, man. Yeah, the price must be very high when it come here. And when you go out and buy, you think you just be surprised to say, hey, you just get such a little bit in Kokwani, and when you go out there, you get so much for the same amount of money. That's why it's so easy for us as Shadehouse producers getting such an easy time with marketing, because you know it's much fresher, far fresher than, you know, what comes from out of the area.
Well, transit in and out from the village isn't all that difficult, except that you can't get a taxi or a minibus throughout the day. You have taxis coming into the community only when they're being hired from the coast. There is a bus, there are two buses actually, that fly between here and Regina, but at once in the morning and in the afternoon. So there is between 8 o'clock and let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you wouldn't be able to get any transportation. It's about 20 miles, 15 to 20 miles. I really don't know about that. Yeah. It could take about 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes to get in here. We have to get to understand that we don't need to get out to buy the greens. We can have them here. We sell to persons, neighbors who are doing, who are not farmers. We can sell the extra to persons around the community. But I'm very, very interested in it, in the sense that I can pass knowledge down to persons, get him interested, get him re-energize the agri in the system of the people, you know, which is the main thing in every community. If everybody's going to think logging, if everybody's going to do mining, you know, where are we going to get the food from?
The bottom line is that if we can feed ourselves, or if we can't at least supply some of the basic food to ourselves, we could be held to ransom by any of the external forces. Guyana, unlike many other countries, you know, has been doing a pretty good job of that over the years. The reality, though, is that in recent years, if you run the supermarkets and even the municipal markets, you'll see a lot of stuff that's imported, right? It's not that you shouldn't import, but, you know, often you wonder, why are we importing some things?
Right, because it's not exotic things.
It's not necessarily exotic. No, right. Precisely. There are a lot of stuff that people can grow at home. We have told people, we can show you how to grow vegetables, even if you live in a concrete house, with a concrete yard and a concrete fence, concrete step, and everything concrete. Because you just have a couple of containers and you can grow a lot of stuff. All of your herbs, your pepper, your celery, your shallot, thyme, all of those things, you can grow at home in containers. Forget about shade house. That is very, very basic, right? You can use a lot of throwaway stuff. In fact, that is how this project started. Throwaway pots and pans and baby wash tub and the tub that you used to wash clothes in, you know, we can show you how to use it. Your paint pots, your milk tin, all of that stuff, right? And so it's not only about food security at a national level, it's about family food security, right? And savings from money that you would have otherwise spent on stuff, you know, you can do something else with it.
I was a laboratory technician, laboratory supervisor. I worked for 16 years at Machine Corporation of Guyana. Prior to that, I worked 8 years at the then Guyana Electricity Corporation in the laboratory. What I enjoy most about this method of farming is, as much as possible, it's organic. Even the pesticides, I do not use conventional pesticides. I use the organic pesticides, because I feel that what goes into your body reflects you. And if you put a lot of pesticides and fertilizers and chemicals into your body, someday it will come out back. It will affect your system. Being in the chemical industry for so many years, I know the effects of chemical on the human body.
Being new to this form of agriculture, one sometimes wonder, since we use no form of pesticide whatsoever, right, to spray our plants, and depending on the area you live in, you can be susceptible to whiteflies and other forms of diseases. I have to say thanks to Partners of America. They brought in some experts who taught us how to use natural ingredients. On your way in to my home, you pass a large neem plant outside. So we mix the neem, the garlic, hot pepper, and we spray the plants, and that gets rid of all the whiteflies and keep them at bay. So once I had, very early in my planting career, I had an infestation of whiteflies. I no longer have that because I spray at least once a week with it. And you can spray the plant and pick it and eat it one time, because those are all natural ingredients.
It's about what grows best, and I think that I'm using hydroponics. In some cases, I've been experimenting what grows best with hydroponics. I'm using pagasse and sand from Wakapo to show them that they can grow in their own mediums. I'm using coconut dust, which is coconut rotted, and earth, and I'm using cow manure and sand. And all of them are so beautiful. They grow so well under this. Yesterday, I was so excited about my kale, I decided to go and put it outside and see if it would grow outside. And it was looking so abundant and so gorgeous. In fact, the whole place is so teeming with life. It's so green and bustling with that, energy. And then as soon as I put it out in the sun, the thing wilted, and I thought, that's why I've got a shade house. There's something unique about picking something for your lunch, like a guest does, and choosing it, and then seeing it all on the plate, and you think, wow, I picked it. It's so rare that you can have that personal involvement with your food. They can go out into the farm, they can pick their oranges and their lemons and their bananas, and they can hold a child up to pick a tangerine from a tree, and they take a photograph of that moment. It's picking some fruit off a tree, but why is it so important for the parent to hold the child up and they take a photograph? Because it's a really special thing to be able to pick your own food. I had some guests recently, and they were looking at our giant fruit bowl filled with bananas and grapefruit and oranges and lemons and sapodillas and pear. And they picked up an orange and they said, "What's this?" And I said, "An orange." Nobody recognized the orange. They couldn't see that it had a relationship with the oranges they have in their store at home. It's bright orange and it's looks, ours is knobbly and real and rugged. And they said, but it doesn't look like an orange. I said, this is a real orange. This hasn't been contaminated with pesticides and trained to be orange and coloured so that when in my country or in America, you buy an orange and it's bright orange, but it looks almost like it's a false thing. And I would be very distrustful because my oranges at the farm, they are real oranges. They're not tampered with. They're real fruit, real food, right now. It hasn't been flown thousands of miles to me. There's no big impact on the environment. It's just, we went and picked it in the farm and we haven't played around with it. And they play around with our food too much in my country. They muck around with it. They play around, they put stuff in it. What we want is pure food.
I feel gradually this kind of farming thing, it kind of catching on, you know. Yes, because I guess some youths would show a lot of interest in this farming. Yeah, they got a lot of youths now. You would come and ask questions and they want to do things and so on.
What we have seen is that the shadehouse technology, right, the shadehouse vegetable production technology, with the hydroponics too, have interested a lot of young people. And we see that that is really going to be the turning point in Guyana because people can relate to it. It doesn't look like, when you ask them, it doesn't look like farming. And so that is the attraction. They're doing it at CXC level. So many students have been exposed to it, not only in Region 2 where they have the schools doing it, but we've had several schools pass through here. Several students and young people have gone to the different exhibitions where we have been, or it might have been FAO or NARI, and they've seen what is possible.
At the Shadehouse, we would have students coming from the schools, New Silver City Secondary School, Wisma Christianburg Secondary School, to do their practical and their SBAs, to know what is practical in agricultural development and especially in the organic and shadehouse culture. Some of the students would come and buy 12, 20 seedlings to go and plant in the yards and things. So I think they're getting to it. The students, I'm encouraging them that after the SB and the exam, most of them go to school. Many of them don't have employment quickly, and so I encouraged some of them. I said, you have to come back. I have space in the farm here, right? You can take a bed or two. You can produce personally for yourself. You would have plants. As long as you come here, I'll give you free plants and work along with you. You will get more experience that you can go home and you can go in your neighborhood and do something more.
In 2015, my son won a competition. There was a children competition for teaching children to grow vegetables using the hydroponic method. This competition was sponsored by Partners of America, and one of the winners in this village was my son. He won the first prize. After winning the first prize, he will plant lettuce, celery. The produce that he gets from the shade house, he takes to school and he markets it to his teachers. He has a market at school whereby his teachers will ask for the vegetables because they realize it lasts longer. It stays fresh and it tastes different from the vegetables that they will have from the market. So, in addition to him providing food for himself, he also assists in providing his pocket money.
Shade houses are growing. More and more people are growing, and we are, as a cooperative now, when we get our license, we will be going into schools to teach this method of farming to the young ones. I had schools visited me here already. Sad to say, not government schools, there were a couple private schools. But we want to teach all the schools in the area, regardless of creed or race. All the schools in the area will learn about protective agriculture. And not only that, we'll teach them by starting to use the bottles that are thrown away, the soft drink bottles, how to cut them and use it so that they can grow celery, tomatoes, and a lot of other stuff in those little bottles. Right? And so we need to teach the children from young. So when they reach, it will be just like, okay, this is how we farm. And that's a change in mindset. So we got to start with the little ones in the schools and the various church communities and so forth.
Philosophy behind a cooperative society is people helping people, basically a self-help. We come together because in life, no one person can achieve much. They will achieve up to a certain level. But then if they join together, they will achieve more. Right? So the importance of cooperative is having people come together to develop themselves and the community. You first start with individual. Each individual in a co-op society is supposed to grow. From the growth, then his family will grow. And if every family within the community grow, then the community will grow. And this you will see a total improvement of the entire community, and as the community develops, the country will develop.
Forming a co-op society was a decision that was made by the members of Region 3 and several other groups. One of the reasons why we decided to form a co-op society is that being a collective body, we have more bargaining power in that we could bargain for things that benefit our members, things such as grants, technical support as a body. Doing it individually, you might not get that far, but as a registered society, you're more recognized. One of our goals why we decided to form the society is that as a group, we could purchase materials, raw material, to support shade houses in the region. For example, we could buy the UV plastic, the mesh, seeds to set up to plant in the nurseries, and all other shade house supplies, which currently we're finding very expensive to purchase as individuals.
It depends on the size, right? You might see 100 by let us say 100 by 40 shade house, right? Both plastic and mesh might lead you up to like about $600,000 to $700,000, right? And as a one-off investment, when we transfer this technology to the farmers, I mean, because the initial capital investment is high, some of these guys were very much reluctant to go down the line. But they do recognize, right? They do recognize from the teachings and the demonstration plot and their colleagues who are farmers, the experience that they would have gotten, and you know, they do recognize that's the way to go.
So, as a society, we could put forward proposal whereby we could ask for a reduction in prices. Because all shade house producers, I could say all shade house producers want to continue. And I say that based on my interaction with other members of the group. Yes, they want to continue, but they're finding raw materials very expensive to obtain. So it is our goal that we will fill that gap as a cooperative.
So the whole idea of setting up cooperatives and setting up clusters is a way of sustaining the project after it would have come to an end. As a matter of fact, from the putting together of the clusters into the cooperatives, then we moved to the National Association. and it is expected that the National Association of Shadehouse Producers will be there for a number of years after this project would have come to an end. A lot of the hard work that was done from 2013 has been paid off, because to reach to a stage where you get people to agree and have a common ground, it is a tremendous success. Because in the early part of the project, we were there to train. Yes, we can train so many people. We saw past all our targets, so many thousand people have been trained. But one of the difficult things is to bring people together, people who are accustomed being individuals, people who are accustomed planting by themselves and making their own money. To bring them together into a cooperative is a tremendous achievement. We would like to see a lot more persons getting involved in agriculture, and then showing them the benefits. And it's not just about finances, but about your health benefits also. So on this project, I've learned so much as a person. I've learned so much as a person. I've learned about agriculture, I've learned about the health benefits, I've learned about people. There's so much things that I could tell you. I could go on and tell you about the successes of this project. And I would really like to see it continue in some shape or form to another level.
What motivated me to start to actually build the Shade House originally was because of the demand from our guests is that they're coming to an eco resort, and we have to be sustainable. These are words that are real. These aren't just bywords or marketing words. They have to mean something. And in order to be sustainable, we have to look at what we produce and in what manner we produce it.
Control agriculture is the way to go. You have a choice based on where you're situated. You could actually take it out of the ground and then have a shade over it, or you could leave it in the ground with a shade over it, or you could take it out of the ground without no shade over it. And then you'll see the results. Because when you do things like tomatoes and sweet pepper, they would last up to going on to 2 years under the control system. But if they're on the outside, they would go like after 4 or 5 months, they will all go. Plus, you would not get the yield from the plant also. Because when it's in a controlled environment, you gave it all that the plant requires. The right amount and quality of food, the right amount of water and plant care.
I would just like to encourage everybody to get to plant something. Even if it's one plant, you will get food. Plant something in your yard space. And don't say you don't have space. Climate change adaptation, shade house farming is the way to go. It gives you the opportunity to control your produce. Control what you produce, control how you produce it, and also control the market. Because you will have, when conventional farmers do not have to supply the normal market.